Hello everyone, this is POW. In this update, we're going to be talking about a moderate risk upgrade with a major tornado outbreak developing and a snowstorm. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Good afternoon everyone, this is your afternoon update, and we've got a lot of things to talk about because the severe threat has really intensified throughout this afternoon. You can see this this low-level jet with this powerful jet streak coming across as is really going to be starting to dig in later on this afternoon. It's got a lot of lift with it, a lot of shear. It needs to be fast-moving, rotating supercell thunderstorms. And in fact, the Storm Prediction Center has increased from an enhanced risk to now a moderate risk for severe activity, as all the ingredients are coming together, and the timing has actually moved up and moved back. So it's more of a longer duration event, and the intensity level has ramped up, and you can see as well as the intensity level has shifted a little bit further northward as well. So they do have a moderate risk for severe activity into the Memphis, Tennessee area, into Jonesboro, Arkansas, going into places in Missouri and West Memphis, Arkansas as well, under that severe threat. And then even the enhanced threat into Indianapolis, places like Nashville, St. Louis, Missouri, going into Louisville, Kentucky, as well as Little Rock, Arkansas, is still going to be under the gun. And then as these start to intensify, it'll start more or less into East Texas, around the Lufkin area, get into Shreveport. But yeah, that slight risk extends all the way to Chicago now. So that is definitely a change or keeps intensifying. That's why this is going to be, looks like, unfortunately, a multi-state event. And it looks to start in just the next couple of hours and be all night long. And it looks like a major tornado outbreak, unfortunately, is on the table. Let's take a look at the overall tornado parameter index, and the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted a 15% attach risk, and that's a huge area, folks, from Memphis to Nashville to St. Louis to Louisville, Kentucky, all the way down to Little Rock. You're into that most significant threat to seeing tornadoes, but really anywhere from Lufkin all the way to Chicago. This is such a huge threat that's going to be on the table, and it literally looks to start as early as 4 o'clock. The latest instability and some of the latest guidance is really starting to come together, and they're actually about to issue a severe thunderstorm watch currently into places like central and northern Arkansas, getting into southeastern Missouri. It looks like between about 4 to 6 o'clock time frame. This is an initial earlier development. We could be looking at large cell, supercell, isolated, discrete thunderstorms starting to develop already, increasing risk for supercells with the potential to produce severe hail and tornadoes as early as between 4 and 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. So that's only about 2 hours away from actually when I'm recording this video. So definitely looks like it's going to be an initiation, going to be starting probably 4 to 5 hours earlier than originally thinking from this particular event. But man, by the time you get into that 8, 9 o'clock hour, those significant tornado parameter indexes are really starting to intensify over portions of northern Missouri, northern Arkansas, getting into southeastern Missouri, getting into Illinois, as well as western Tennessee, northern Mississippi here. This is the bullseye area that could be seeing some of those increasing tornadoes, and this will just intensify as we get deeper into the evening hours going ahead. So, because man, look at the radar index. By the time we get into that 8 o'clock time frame, that's almost scary, folks, to see these little dots like this. These are just individual discrete supercell thunderstorms. Originally, I was thinking probably 10 to 20 tornadoes with this particular outbreak. Now I'm thinking it's really intensified. It's ramped up a lot, more or less into 30 and to 40 tornado range over an extended period of time. So that's just my initial thinking from this particular system, with all the dynamics that are going to be on the table this evening. So it's a very dangerous night. It's a night that you don't want to be scared. You just want to be prepared. So definitely be weather aware. Have your NOAA weather radio alert handy. Have your safe place and place to get to your safe zone, and take all warnings seriously, because it definitely appears to be a dangerous night in store ahead, because as we go into deeper into that 9-10 o'clock time frame, that bulk shear is really evident over the Illinois area, over Indiana, getting in Ohio, as well as western Tennessee here. So you're talking a multi-state event as it really starts to get ramping up and start to intensify about 10 o'clock. I mean, this is scary, folks. The latest HRRR model just producing these little dots, these little renegade thunderstorms sporadically. These are all discrete. These are all separate. Each one of these could be a supercell thunderstorms with a tornado attached to it. So this is a very dangerous thing just right here. I mean, it could start as early as 4 o'clock, but even extending all the way into the 8 to 10 o'clock hour into Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, getting into Illinois, start to feed over in Tennessee, as well as getting into western parts of Kentucky, western Kentucky here, southern Indiana, southern Ohio. That's on the 10 o'clock time frame. And then we transition into about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're still fairly discrete. I mean, the cold front lags well behind. That's what makes this system so dangerous, because we got the warm sector, and it stays in the warm sector for many hours to come. The colder air lags well behind. So that's the intensity from this particular system. And still, I mean, we're trying to get to a squall line, but we're just not there yet. By 1 o'clock in the morning, we're still seeing more or less these isolated individual supercell thunderstorms, kind of really a band from still Arkansas to portions of Missouri to Illinois, all the way up to Indiana and Ohio. And as it continues moving into western Tennessee, it tries to start to kind of congeal together. And as we get into this is 5 o'clock in the morning. We're talking 5 o'clock in the morning, the time frame. We're still seeing those isolated supercell thunderstorms breaking out over Mississippi, extending into the Alabama area, getting into western Tennessee here, central part of Kentucky, going into Ohio with these supercell thunderstorms. And then finally, by the time we get into Saturday morning, these actually congeal into a solid squall line. And I think that's when it actually transfers into a nasty, tornado outbreak, into a damaging wind threat. You're talking those 60, 70 mile per hour squall line damaging wind threat as this pushes off into the southeast, getting into places into northern Alabama, central Tennessee, central Kentucky by then, and actually extending all the way into West Virginia. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center has kept and actually increased the severe threat going into Saturday, because this actually goes all the way into Saturday morning now, around between 6 and 10 o'clock in the morning. They're still going to be intense enough. There's still a slight risk for severe weather into Nashville, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Ohio, going into Lexington, Kentucky, Huntsville, Alabama, all the way into Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Those areas will be under the gun. And then once it transfers into a squall line, then that's when I think it'll be more or less under the marginal side. The tornado threat comes down. So now we're talking as it goes into places like Birmingham, Atlanta, going into Roanoke, Virginia. Those places will be just into New Orleans. We're probably not going to be talking about more or less widespread tornado activity, more or less a damaging wind threat, as these really start to be more or less strong and really not severe anymore as these continue to push off. But we could be looking at some nasty winds. I kind of broke this off because there's actually a snowstorm to our north as well. And we could be looking at, say, blizzard-like conditions in places in Minnesota and Wisconsin coming up on Friday night, getting into Saturday. But some of these winds could be packing a punch, and this is not even factored in with these things turning severe. This is just with that low-level jet. So you're talking a good patch over Kentucky into Indiana and Ohio, getting in West Virginia. We're talking those 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, and these are when they're not over severe thunderstorm warning. Obviously, when you get a severe thunderstorm, you're going to be a little bit higher than that, and especially if you get a tornado, even can be higher than that. So man, this can be very windy because there's gonna be a lot of rotation in the atmosphere coming up this evening, going into the overnight hours. But here's the snow threat too, because this is pretty evident too. They've already had a lot of heavy snow in the Rockies. This actually starts to intensify into a major snow event, really, and even almost blizzard-like conditions with up to a foot snow getting into northern Ohio, Iowa here, southern Minnesota, really extending into central and to more or less almost northern Wisconsin here with a good 8 to 10, almost 12-inch swath. So definitely a heavy snow event with this particular system as well on the northern side. But as we go into next week, we've got some much needed rains coming back in the picture for California, and not just central California or northern California. Almost southern California gets into the action with more heavy snow for the Cascades into the Rocky Mountains, and as well as the Saharas here, as the ski lovers are going to be really loving it. Going to be putting a major snowpack on the ground this week with the first system, but we have another system coming in next week that'll just reinforce the snowpack in that region. But man, by the time we get into, say, next Wednesday timeframe, we're going to be seeing a lot of transition all over again because we rapidly warm up, and this is something definitely rare on the table for next week. We're talking upwards to 35, 40, a little bit higher than 40 degrees above average in Iowa. I mean, we're talking a snowstorm this week, but we're talking 40 degrees above average next week. So you can see this huge swing in temperatures. They're going to be on the table as we've got much colder air filtering in off the West Coast with a diving trough. And when you see that clash, let's take a look at the vorticity index, because by the time we get in that Thursday time frame, we'll have to watch this, because obviously we're going to be plenty warm again and colder air, and we got some rotation in the atmosphere and a pretty strong cold front too. So we could be looking at another severe storms coming in by that Wednesday, getting into next Friday timeframe. So that's something I've got my eye on already. But man, it definitely looks like we're starting to see model congruency even already from the GFS and the European model with the stronger cold front after we warm up next week. A stronger cold front by the 18th. So that's not until about 8 days from now. We've got a lot of ups and downs to deal with between now and then, but with that stronger cold front, we could be looking at some severe weather with it, as well as some heavier rains going to be on the table, moving back into places, say in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You're pretty dry for the next week, but I do feel some heavier rains are coming back, some much needed rains for Texas, for Oklahoma, and this will be adding to those totals. What you get now will be adding to those totals next week, because this goes all the way through the 19th. But look at all the welcome rains off the West Coast. So those are much needed rains, and those extend all the way into the Four Corners regions, as well as parts of the Southwest as well. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching out there. Be prepared. Don't be scared tonight. Just listen to all watches and warnings. Do take this storm seriously, because it looks like a dangerous night ahead. Like I mentioned, I'm thinking about 30 to 40 tornadoes with this outbreak, and we won't really know the final number in probably about a week from now. So definitely a dangerous night ahead. Stay weather aware. I appreciate you guys watching. Do share this video with your friends on social media to let them know the potential dangers on the table tonight. Leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.